Welcome back to Post TV Live, Day 3 from NAB 2012, and we're here with Eddie Hamilton, editor on Kick-Ass, one of the editors on Kick-Ass, and one of the editors on X-Men First Class. You're here this week with Avid. You're doing some presentations at the booth.
Yeah.
Just hoping maybe you could tell us, are you working on 6 now, Media Composer 6?
Yeah, Media Composer 6, although obviously that's only been out a short while, and the most important rule of working on a movie is never upgrade during the movie. So if you start on one version, stay on that version till the end, otherwise you're going to open up a whole world of pain. No, so I've been using version 6 actually just for the last movie, the film that I'm editing in London right now. I'm just using version 6.
And what movie is that?
I can't really say
at
the moment, so I'll just keep it confidential for now.
Okay.
And you were telling us that you have to have a cut delivered pretty quickly after you leave the
Yeah, I know,
post
it's
booth.
quite common. I mean, the thing is, on any movie now, they expect you to be cutting during the shoot and turn in assemblies very, very quickly, like the day after the stuff is shot. Certainly on X-Men First Class, the producers were expecting to see cutscenes by lunchtime the day after everything was filmed.
Wow.
So the turnaround is very quick. And on that movie, we were editing, you know, the entire time over Christmas, every moment we had. The director, that film, we had 9 months from when they started filming to when the movie was in theaters, and the shoot was about 7 months. So we locked picture 9 days after the shoot finished, and then 1 week later we were mixing the sound, and then 2 weeks later we finished mixing the sound, and 2 weeks after that it was in thousands of screens worldwide in like multiple languages and loads of subtitles. And so the deadlines were very tight, so you need to be, you know, right on it, working incredibly fast and trying to get the film in a kind of finished shape as soon as you can, so that everyone can make, you know, production decisions based on what they see, you know, in terms of sound design and visual effects and music and stuff like that.
I was going to say, it's such a visual effects heavy film. How did that affect the way you work, and what were some of the challenges?
Okay, well, I was hired by the director, Matthew Vaughn, 2 months before they rolled one frame of film, mainly in order to cut previs for the film. So if any of you have seen X-Men First Class, there's a big sequence, there's a big action sequence towards the end where there's the Russian Navy and the American Navy are facing off. The X-Jet flies in, Professor X causes a ship full of missiles to blow up, Magneto, I'm giving it away if people haven't seen it, but you know, it's a year ago, so
it's
come on, guys.
It's all hypothetical. We're talking in...
you know, there's a big scene in the trailer where you see Magneto pulling a submarine out of the water, the villain submarine. He manages to pull it out of the water, and the X-Jet suspends it above the beach. It's very exciting, but those shots of Magneto pulling the sub out of the water, they're like $100,000 to $200,000 a shot, sometimes more than that. So when you get the previs, which looks like a kind of computer game cutscene, when you get that, you start cutting it together, and I spend a long time working on it. I put it together like a finished movie. So we get actors in to record lines of dialogue, because obviously the actual actors aren't around yet because they're not on set for another couple of months. We get some actors in, we record the dialogue, I build a soundtrack, I put temp score on it. So the studio, we previs maybe about 20 minutes of the movie, and it was totally watchable, projectable in a theater, watchable, just with kind of low resolution graphics. And if you buy the Blu-ray, you can see the previs, and there's a kind of side, like a split screen, so you can compare the previs with the finished movie, and it's pretty close. But the reason it's pretty close is because the shots are so expensive, and the studio will be making decisions on how much they're going to spend on the visual effects based on the previs before a single frame of film has been shot, you know? So initially we had 7 shots of the submarine coming out of the water, and the studio said we can afford 5. Because the difference is like several $100,000. And the director said, look, I'll drop 1, and I'll drop some other shots from earlier in the film to cover the overage. And so that's the biggest challenge. And then the other thing I did was, in order to, you know, I'm a huge fan of X-Men and the comics and the movies, and I really worked we all worked incredibly hard to make a film that people would appreciate and think was a worthy entry into the franchise. And so one of the things I did quite early on is I asked the studio for HD Cam SR tapes of all the other movies with dialogue, effects, Foley, backgrounds, and music stems, sound stems. So I loaded them all into my media composer, and I could go through and cherry pick all the best sound effects. So the Magneto sound design, Mystique, and things like that, or the X-Jet, Cerebro, and I could take those sound design elements from the other movies and use them when I was building my soundtrack in the media composer, so that the soundscape of the movie sounded familiar to everybody. And then I got all the scores from the other X-Men films, and I broke them all down, and so I could use that to sort of start building a temp score. You know, the trick is to try and make your work watchable like a finished movie, you know, as soon as possible, so the guys who are making production decisions can come and sit in the cutting room. I always work with 5.1 surround sound, big huge plasma screen, biggest one the production can afford, and so it's really theatrical, where, you know, the environment that I create in the cutting room is as close to a theatrical environment as possible, so people can start feeling the movie very quickly, you know. And that means that when we get onto the mixing stage, the sounds that are being used everyone's grown used to them, hearing them in the media composer, so there are no nasty surprises when you get on the stage, and you can kind of crank through the mix really quickly and trouble-free, and you take it from a kind of stereo, which I use in the media composer, and you sort of turn it into a nice 5.1 for a theater, and you know, that's kind of something else that I did on that film, which I try and do a lot, is spend as much time working on the sound as I do on the images, because it's so important. It's half the story, you know.
You were saying also, obviously, a lot of this, you're waiting on visual effects, everything is shot out of sequence, you're getting stuff, and then at one point you have to kind of put it together in the linear way that it's going to appear, and that takes some going back and revisiting what you've done already. Can you talk a little?
That's right. So generally, obviously, they shoot in an order which is appropriate for locations and cast availability, and you know, the other issue we had is that the makeup for Beast took a long time to get where they wanted to film it, so, you know, all his stuff was pushed till later on in the shoot, which was fine, because obviously Nicholas Hoult wasn't Beast for the whole film. He was only Beast for the last like 20 minutes. Another spoiler
there you go again.
There I go again. But you know, you see it in the trailer, him transforming. But we start cutting the scene straight away, and normally about halfway through the film, we'll start putting all the scenes together and building the movie with little placeholder cards saying scene missing, scene missing, scene missing, so we know the bits that have still got to be filmed. And you start looking at you know, the transitions between the scenes and the pace of the movie, and how to get how to work on how the scenes begin and end, so that it starts feeling like it's, you know, running smoothly and it's paced well, and, you know, feeling like a movie, you know, and not no scene is lasting longer than it needs to. And, you know, if you need to cut stuff out, you start making decisions about what lines might be redundant, and, you know, figuring out if there's any new visual effects that might be needed, all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of an ongoing process that you're doing the entire time to you know, just to make sure that everyone can see the potential in the material, you know. And obviously, you know, as a kid growing up, from the age of 7, I wanted to work in the film industry, and to work on a huge movie like X-Men First Class, when I've been working, literally, I've had this dream since the age of 7 years old to work in the film industry. When I was about 17, I thought maybe editorial, like working as an editor, would suit me. And so from the age of 17, and I'm nearly 40 now, so all that time I've been like working every single day to try and improve and get better, and, you know, sharpen my skills in editing and sound design and color correction and music, and, you know, all the skills, everything that I can do within the media composer. I want to say, how can I do this better? How can I deliver a world-class product to the producers? And you have to give people a reason to hire you, you know, so that's kind of what I've been doing. And then to find myself working on a movie like X-Men First Class was a dream, you know, to drive onto the Fox lot every day and be working alongside legends, like true motion picture legends. Like our visual effects supervisor was John Dykstra, 2 Oscars, you know, invented the motion camera systems for Star Wars and got an Oscar for Spider-Man 2, which was, you know, a jaw-dropping film. To work alongside him for the entire year of the production of the movie was such an honor and a privilege, you know. And I was reading books about him when I was, you know, when I was a kid, and reading about what he achieved when they were shooting Star Wars. It was just an honor, you know. And I never lose sight of that. You know, it's a privilege to be doing this every single day, and I love it. My passion and enthusiasm grows, you know, every day for the job.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Maybe when you could talk about the film you're working on, you could give us a shout and we could report on it.
No problem.
Post.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
It's all, you can't talk about these things because
No,
it's sometimes, you know, very confidential, and you can jinx stuff. You know,
Sure.
there'll be there's great movies that are coming down the tracks, but until you're sitting working on it, there's no point in talking about it because you never know what might happen.
Totally understand, but we will get you then.
My pleasure. No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks. Eddie Hamilton, Mark Loftus, Randy Altman. We'll be back shortly.